All right. What's up, everyone? Your host, Drew Manning, here of the Fit2Fat2Fit Experience podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Jamie Hinckley. She's a good friend of mine. I kind of met her way back in the day when I first moved to Utah in 2009. She was working at 24 Hour Fitness, and so was I at the time. And anyways, we just became friends, and then we went about our lives, and we kind of reconnected in the past year or so. And I saw that she's a somatic practitioner, and as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of breathwork. Somatic breathwork is the name of the breathwork that I do, and she's into somatic healing. So our journeys have kind of, crossed paths, if you will. And then we connected, and I heard her story of what she went through with one of her exes. And in this podcast, she opens up at the horrific circumstances that she had to deal with as one of her exes took his life. But it's deeper than that. It's darker than that. It's scarier than that. And I'll spare you the details here. But it's something that I don't know how she was able to overcome something like this, especially being a single mom, having two kids. I can only imagine the trauma that she experienced from this. And she opens up about it, and she talks about her healing modalities that she used to help her overcome this. And as you guys know, I'm a big proponent of understanding how emotional challenges and traumas affect our ability to show up for ourselves. And that includes things like diet and exercise. I help a lot of clients through this conscious fitness journey that I call it, which kind of connects the dots for them of why they struggle to show up for themselves and eat healthy food consistently and move their body consistently and treat themselves with kindness, if you will. And this podcast with Jamie is a perfect example of how serious life situations and challenges can affect you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And the good news is that there are healing modalities like breathwork, like somatic healing, that she'll talk about in this episode, that can really help us get unstuck and not stay in the victim mindset forever, which I think is ideal for most people, to not stay in the victim mindset. Both of those journeys, whether you stay in the victim mindset or do the work to grow from that, both come at a cost. And both are not easy. So, anyways, I'll save you guys the details before we jump into the episode with Jamie. But before we do, just a couple quick announcements. If you haven't been following me on social media, or you haven't been listening to my podcast, the first thing is I'm doing my first ever conscious fitness retreat on the Big Island of Hawaii, which is where I live. So you get the opportunity to come out here for a week, spend a week with me and some like-minded people, experiencing the beauty of this island while also learning how to become the best version of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You will actually get to experience breath work and cold plunge and sauna and some other healing modalities that I'm excited to introduce you to, plus some beautiful hikes, some beautiful beaches, some amazing adventures and excursions that we're going to go on. It's a week that you do not want to miss. The August retreat is already sold out. So if you go to consciousfitnesscoaching.com, you can fill out the application for the October retreat, which is October 14th through 19th. There's still a few spots left available. We're staying in this really nice mansion here in town. 15 people. It's a smaller, more intimate group. And it's going to be amazing. It's going to be mind-blowing. It'll be a life-changing experience. So if you're feeling called to do it, go check out consciousfitnesscoaching.com and fill out the application for the October retreat. Like I said, the August one's already sold out. Also, this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Kion, Kion. What is Kion? This is a company that makes a lot of different products, but I'm mostly focusing on their essential amino acids. And I had the CEO on a few weeks back. If you go back and look at my podcast, where we talk about the importance of essential amino acids. I also talked about this on a podcast with Dr. Jim Stepani, who's a very big name in the fitness industry. And we talked about the importance of amino acids, especially for any of you out there that are 30s, 40s, 50s, getting older. We do and will lose our muscle mass as we age. And if you want to slow down that process of losing lean muscle mass as you age, one of the things that you can do, one of the most important things you can do, is supplement with essential amino acids. The reason I like Kion, for a few reasons. It can help build lean muscle mass. It can enhance your athletic recovery. and it can boost your energy, meaning it's a fuel source, to use during your workouts, which is what I use it for as well. It's stimulant free, it's sugar free, it's 100% vegan, and it's derived solely from non-GMO plant sources. It's backed by over 20 years of clinical research, and they have delicious flavors. My favorite is the watermelon one. Clean, minimal ingredients, no junk or fillers. They undergo rigorous third-party testing, and it's created in a CGMP facility located within the U.S. So I'm a huge fan of the product Keon. And if you want 20% off your monthly subscription or 10% off your single purchase, just go to getkion, getkion.com/Drew. That's getkion.com/Drew, /Drew. Sorry. One more time. That's getkion.com/Drew. Go check it out and start supplementing with these essential amino acids. And with that, you guys, let's go hang out with Jamie Hinckley. Thank you. Okay. Jamie Hinckley, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Good to have you on.
Thank
I'm excited to have you on the podcast.
you for
How
having
many podcasts have you done so far?
me. This is my third.
Third. Hey,
Yeah.
third time's a charm. So that
Right?
means this one's going to be awesome.
That's true.
So why don't we start here? This is very easy, very basic. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe a little bit about your background? And one of the questions I like to ask people when they first come on is, tell me about the environment you grew up in
Okay.
that kind of shaped you into who you are today. So connect the dots for us.
All right. I am a somatic coach, so
Mm,
trauma-informed somatic coach here in Salt Lake City, Utah. My upbringing, well, Utah-based,
okay.
that comes with religion, the
So you
LDS
grew up
religion.
Mormon
Not
ish.
actively. Not
Okay.
active, but my friends were. Most of my friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that have an influence on you? Did that like shape you in certain ways?
I think so. Yeah, I think anyone that's raised in Utah is influenced by that religion.
Very true.
Friends definitely couldn't play on Sunday.
Mm,
Um, yeah, it was a lot of perfection, a lot of pressure on my friends. I just wanted to have
mm.
fun, and that was
Did
her.
they, were you allowed to like, was there kind of like any shunning or like, hey, you're not one of us? Or did you feel left out sometimes? Or,
Yeah, I think I felt it the most when it was time to get baptized,
like
because
all your friends were doing it?
yeah, all my friends were doing it, and then there was the pressure for me to do it. And having not been active, like in order to be included in some of the little circles, you had to be baptized. And so I was baptized, and yeah, just
Okay.
never active fully.
Never active.
Hmm.
Hmm. Were your parents strict, like with religious? Like, was there any strict religious, or I know you said you weren't active, but did they kind of raise you with any kind of like, their philosophies on religion?
No, no.
They just
Both
let you
my
be you.
parents were active growing up, but
Okay.
then once they were adults, they left the church. And yeah, we really just I guess they just baptized me to fit in,
Yeah.
have friends. I remember that happening with my daughter as well. She
Mm,
came to me and she's like, "In order to fit in, I have to get baptized." And I was like, "No, that's not how I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna" because I guess with that religion, the missionaries have to come if it's a certain age. Like, if you turn 9 in a certain time, then the missionaries come. And I'm like, "If you want to get baptized, then you're gonna get the missionaries because you need to know what you're doing."
yeah. Yeah, that's kind of part of the church protocol. Like to get baptized, you have to like take discussions from the missionaries, and
Mm,
that's kind of, it's a whole process.
right.
Okay, so going back to your upbringing, though, how many siblings, and would you say you had like a loving kind of childhood where you felt loved, you felt safe,
Yeah.
or did you have struggles?
Um, I felt very safe. I felt so safe that I didn't know how to necessarily approach it as an adult. So I grew up with a
Mm,
sister, so one sibling, 6 years apart, which is crazy.
older,
Younger,
younger, brother,
younger
sister.
sister.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, a dad that worked, he worked really hard, a mom that stayed home. So mom was always around and always there when we needed her. Dad,
Mm,
I always say was like that protector that if there was a grizzly bear chasing me, I knew my dad was like, he's got it. Like, he's got it under control. There was nothing that would hurt us as little girls.
Wow. So you had so two girls.
Two girls. Yeah.
Wow. And were you guys close growing up?
My sister and I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. That's
Mhm.
awesome.
I know.
I'm a girl dad as well. I have two daughters as well. So I'm like
Mhm.
thinking about all those things. And that's awesome. Your dad made you feel safe.
Mhm.
You said he worked a lot, but I think that I read a book before my first daughter was born called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, and that made a huge impact on me on the importance of a father's role in a daughter's life. And the biggest thing I took away from that is a girl learns how to love from her mom, but she learns how to be loved from her dad. And so I think that's important. And I think so. It sounds like you had a good relationship with your dad.
Yeah, still do.
Okay,
Yep.
that's awesome. That's really really cool.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that's undervalued in our society.
Totally.
But I love seeing like girl dad's a thing. You look at Kobe Bryant, you look at Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Those are like role models to me as far as that. And so I see the importance of that, and that's really cool that you had that, and you and your sister. Where's your sister at now?
Where is she? She's in
Is she in
Salt Lake.
Utah?
Yeah,
Okay.
she's
She have
actually my
kids?
neighbor. Yep. 2 kids. 3
Wow.
kids. 3 kids.
Dang. And you have two kids.
2. Yep.
Yeah.
20 and 10.
And so walk us through how you got into being a somatic coach. So like what were you interested in as a kid? And then what did you study in high school and college, and how did you wind up here? Maybe start
Ooh.
connecting those dots.
So as a I growing up, I wanted to be a neonatal nurse. So I've always had, I think,
Mm,
that caring, that nurturing piece in me. I right out of high school got into mortgage, so I've spent the
mm,
last 25 years in mortgage. And it was really good to me. Like it was a great career to have flexibility, great income. And then in 2021, lost a domestic partner to suicide, and
mm.
that
Dang.
shifted my career path, just shifting me into it. It awakened again that caring and that nurturing part in me, that I had kind of put behind me with
Yeah.
lifey life stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I found somatic coaching and breath work.
So before we get to that part of your story, because that part
Mhm.
I think is a huge pivotal moment in your journey, because I know you personally,
Yeah.
but for everyone listening, I know that there was some fitness stuff there as well. Like what
Yes.
got you into health and fitness, and does that play a part of in your life now? And if so, how? And then also, sorry, lots of questions. Why did you get into health and fitness in the first place? Let's start there.
Health and fitness, uh, mostly for my mental health. It just felt good to me.
Yeah.
Being in mortgage was stressful, and I just needed that outlet. Um, I did get certified in personal training because that caring, nurturing part, I want to see people
Yeah.
succeed, and so I did that. And ran a
Hmm.
fitness camp. Uh, so that was fun. It was like a big group fitness that we had a house up in Salt Lake in the mountains, and people from
Really?
all over the country would come and stay for months at a time, and I was the trainer of the house, and so I would wake up, go out, and be with them.
I didn't know this. This is kind of like a Biggest Loser camp
It
style
was
where people
Biggest
come for
Loser.
months
Yep,
and you
yep.
put them through. Wow, how long did that last?
It was like a year and a half. So that's ultimately why I got into the personal training stuff. I needed to be licensed to do that.
Gotcha. What was the biggest thing you learned from that house, that camp that you ran? Like, what did you see about people and transformation, and what did you learn from that whole experience?
It's super interesting because there was a lady that came, I think she was from Maryland, but she
Okay.
came and she's blind. So she came with a
Wow.
seeing eye dog. So I think of all the people that I had in the house with me was her, because she still would go on the hikes, she would still walk on the treadmill, she'd still swim. Um, and that was incredible. But I made
Wow.
forever friends. It was really challenging because fitness has always been so important to me.
Yeah.
Um, and they're coming there for a month at a time just to focus on this.
Wow.
And so it was really cool to just get to teach them like 8 hours of the day.
How much did that cost? Like, if they come a month at a time, how much did people pay for this?
I was the trainer. I don't know. I was
You
the
don't know
I
the
wasn't the business owner.
interesting. Interesting. I've heard of those places, and I think they're amazing. I think they've, worked for a lot of people back in the especially back in the day with Biggest Loser, but I think that's super important. So you mentioned health and fitness was important for your mental health. Was it always about mental health, or did it eventually become about mental health? Or maybe it was always about mental health and you didn't realize that until later, or
Yeah,
maybe
I
I'm
think
just assuming that,
and
you
no,
know?
I think you're right. I think when I started the gym I was going at, I was seeing these girls coming in and getting in the best shape of their lives, and I was like, "I wanna do that."
Mm,
And I
yeah.
mean, their transformation, and it was crazy to eat the diet was insane, and to challenge
Yeah.
myself to that was really cool. But the
Yeah.
challenge for me was, like, you're gonna have 5,000 people seeing you in a bikini on stage, like, you better not eat the candy.
Yeah. That's so was there any negative side effects to doing these shows, or do you have no regrets doing them?
At the time, I had a little girl, so
Okay.
that in my opinion, and it's totally my opinion, it's a very
Yeah.
selfish sport.
Yeah.
Um, I was doing 3 hours of cardio and then meal prepping, and
Dang.
I know, it was a lot. It was a lot, and then I was grumpy. I was grumpy all the time because on top of that, I was doing hours of cardio and, like,
Yeah.
it was yeah, it's crazy.
People don't realize that you sacrifice a lot to do these shows. I've never done one. I respect a lot of people that do them. It's just not for me, but I respect and I know it's a lot of hard work and dedication. And that's interesting. Like it is kind of selfish because you're doing it for you, for your body to get look and you're jumping up on stage, getting judged by how your body looks.
Right.
And I could totally see that. Did you have conversations with your daughter now of how that maybe did that affect her when she was little? Does she see through a lens that maybe like yeah, have you guys had conversations about that?
We do a little bit more now that she's
Okay.
an adult. Back then, I
Okay.
was very careful. I luckily realized that I had a little girl that I needed to be careful with.
Yeah.
So I was extremely careful. She saw my body change though, so she had to have known something, and, like,
Sure.
that's not a lifestyle. So we did talk about that. Like, this isn't a lifestyle. This is like training for the Olympics. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you come back to normal, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like. And I mean, she would be on the front row cheering for me with the "Go Mom" sign, and so that
That's
was
cute.
cool.
That's
We do
cute.
talk about it more now. She asks
Yeah.
me a lot more questions. She's very curious.
Yeah. Which is awesome. And I think that's really cool. I've noticed my daughter, who it's old, my oldest one, is starting to ask me more questions about health and fitness, but I've always tried to make it not about body image. Super important to me with having girls, or making it about their weight or how they look, which society will do for you.
Right,
you know.
totally.
So yeah, you're coming from, and we talked about this a little bit, but I think uh, the downside to all this is people turn fitness, nutrition, health sometimes into a religion, And even though you didn't grow up religious, I left the Mormon religion as well because it didn't work out for me. Like it wasn't healthy. Um, and I see a lot of people doing that these days where they make it into a religion and they force that religion on their kids and they, say this food is good, this food is bad. If you eat this food, you're good. If you eat this food, you're bad. And so be good, like choose
Yeah,
good. And if you don't, then I'm going to shame you and guilt you into like, don't eat the Doritos, don't eat this, it's poison and it'll kill you. Right. We use the same tactics that religion kind of used on us to stay in line and obey. Right. Versus teaching your kids, hey, this is healthy, this is less healthy probably. So try not to eat that. But then if they do, let let them learn. Like that's what I'm starting to realize is like, hey, let go of control. I've taught them everything they need to know about diet and exercise and nutrition. And if they choose not to eat that way, like I would rather have a relationship with them where they feel safe with me than them sneaking around eating that food at their mom's house, at their friend's house, knowing that I will disapprove or shame them if I catch them eating it. And then feel like that builds like a inauthentic relationship.
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, I see that more with my young son that's an athlete. Like he,
Really?
yeah, with food. I see it more with my son, which is weird.
Yeah.
As a young athlete, yeah, he sees the big, like, Major League Baseball players, whatever, what they look like, and as a young 10-year-old, he's like, "How come I can't have these big muscles?" And I'm like, "Well, you can't eat Frosted Flakes, first of all," but
Yeah.
but, like, being able to teach him, like, protein matters, and
Yeah.
if you want to look like this is what you need to do, and, like, teaching him why pro protein's important, so
Yeah. And you mentioned hopefully this is okay to talk about, but you mentioned like he's, at his age, even the kids are starting to make fun of him and he's starting to maybe become aware of his body and like that's tough. That's really tough. Do you mind talking about that or is that too personal?
yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, he came home from school like a month ago and said someone called me fat, and I was like, mind you,
Oh,
I mean, he's 9 years old and 100 pounds, like, he's a big boy, like, he's going to be big, and,
yeah.
he said, "Yeah, someone called me fat," and he said, "Say it again," and he was like, "You're fat," and he punched him, like, but I mean, he is, kids are teasing him.
Yeah.
Kids are teasing him.
That sucks. And that's so hard, especially when your kid's the one who's experiencing it.
Yeah,
'Cause you just want to protect them. And this is I've had these conversations with my daughters about like how hurt people. And it's hard for a kid not to take it personally. Like
yeah,
I think as you get older and wiser and you realize that yeah, hurt people do hurt people. But as a kid you don't really understand that. I try and teach them that like, hey, if someone's teasing you or being mean to you, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them and their self esteem and their insecurities.
yeah,
And I think that's important to learn at a young age. I think if you could learn that at a young age, like it has nothing to do with you, then you don't take it personal. But like I said, it's hard for kids to understand that. But yeah, that breaks my heart to know that your son's experiencing that and that boys experience that just like girls do. And
right.
it sucks and it's not fair. And you want to protect them. You can't like punch 9-year-old kids for, for making
I
fun of your
know.
your son, but I can understand why you would want to. And that's the work that you have to do, right? That's the work that you have to do as the parent of like,
Right.
I want to do this thing, but I want
I
to
know,
work on
I
myself.
wasn't sure if letting him punch it like, should he have gotten in trouble for punching the kid? I mean, my heart says no, but I don't know. The principal called me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's it, being a parent is so hard. And I think one of the things that I've learned, maybe you've learned this as well, Jamie, is just you're trying to parent the you out of your kid. And trying to parent the you out of your kid is so hard. Do you find that's been a challenge for you, even with all the tools you have now, which we'll get into, somatic healing, what that is? Do you find it challenging where like you're confronted with something about your kids and you realize that this is you trying to parent the you out of them? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Have you experienced that before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. How do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
I mean, I heard it one time, someone said to me that your hardest kid is like a reflection of you. So that's
Mm,
crazy. My hardest kid is my son, um, which would be that tender touch, like physical touch wasn't really a part of my childhood. That hug, being present and like time.
yeah.
So I know when he's challenging me, he needs my time or he needs
Mm,
like if he's being big emotionally, he just needs a hug. So, yeah,
yeah.
but it took me a long time to get there. It's frustrating. Kids are
I know.
frustrating. I'm like, "Why don't we just listen?"
Yeah. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, Jamie, you briefly mentioned something that happened back in 2021, and I want to let you open up and talk as much or as little as you want about the situation. You mentioned your partner took his own life. I can only imagine how devastating that was. How did that change your trajectory in life, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, you
I
share as much as you're comfortable with.
No, I think having witnessed so I was with him the last 4, 6 minutes of his life.
Wow.
So being able to witness that in a person in their last moments when they choose to do something like that, such as take their life, I think it was. his voice sounded different. Like he wasn't looking at me, he was looking through me. So I think
Mm,
really dissecting why someone with a, from what I saw, a good life, would choose to take their life. Like I, it just didn't make sense to me. So
yeah.
part of my healing journey was like figuring out mental health with people, like how people get addicted to drugs or addicted to whatever it is outside of just being okay. Like, so I would say that I think how it changed me, I fled the home in fear of him taking me with. So I have a new
Wow.
outlook on life. That what I see in people, I don't see people anymore. I see their souls. Like there was a time when I wasn't even able to hear words. I was just like so present in just their breath and just being with these people that I wasn't retaining what they were saying. So I just like life is so precious and it can just be taken in the blink of an eye, and some people are choosing to take their life, and I just it just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
So I think I look at humans different and want to help. I've always had that nurturing aspect in me. So being able to step into them, not necessarily becoming a part of their life, but helping them in my field helps
Yeah.
me heal a ton.
How did you heal from that? How does someone heal from something like that?
Yeah, so I first started, luckily I was working with an EMDR therapist.
Okay. I've heard
And
good things about that.
yeah, so she called me right after it happened. So the day it happened, she was like, just tell me everything that happened. And so I was just brain dumping like everything, which now makes sense to me why she was doing that, because you forget like the trauma in the moment, you forget all of that stuff.
Yep.
So she was just letting me download everything. And then eventually I didn't have access to her as much as I wanted or needed. I mean, it was
Okay.
once a week and you can't always call your therapist. So
Yeah.
um I found breathwork. One of my friends got into it, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like I started having nightmares, and
Wow.
when you can't call your therapist, you need something to regulate your system and come back to your body and like make sense of things. Yeah, a lot of me was like trying to figure out how to to put my family back together when I was still like shocked what had happened. Um, that I had started getting, I wouldn't say numb, but like I was just going, like
Yeah.
like I just needed to get back to normal, whatever that looked like. So I was just fighting, 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 fighting. And then I got there and I was like, so 6 months later, then I'm left with me and this like path of, yes, I did a lot of cool things, but I totally exited my body. So now I'm like, okay, now what? Like now I need my
Yeah.
life back. What do I
Yeah.
insert? So it was almost like a reset of like, this is who you thought you were, and now this is you empty, and like you get to rebuild this the way you want it to, and just dissect everything.
Have you read the book The Body Keeps the Score?
Hmm. Yeah.
Such a good book. And I think it's interesting for people to learn that our brains, our bodies, and brains protect us from traumas, right? Your body, your brain will disassociate for you so that you maybe feel numb or, disconnected from your body in a sense to where you can, not feel anything almost to be able to survive. And it's a survival mechanism built in. So when people go through traumatic experiences, it's too painful, it's too much for the nervous system to handle, and it will help you check out. And it develops parts of people where they have done that, and multiple times, maybe from childhood or traumatic experiences that have happened, our bodies have done that. And now that those parts of us, that we're older and we're not in that danger anymore, it's hard to let go of those old parts of us because they've helped us, right? And this is what I try and help people realize is like having compassion towards those parts of you that at a time it served a purpose.
Yeah.
It was survival.
Yeah.
It served a purpose.
Yep.
And now that you're like not in danger anymore, it's keeping you from living fully and feeling fully, which at some point you need to get back to. And it sounds like you were able to do that through therapy, through EMDR, through breath work.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's very valuable to learn how to do that. So tell me about that first breathwork experience. What happened? How did it feel? How did it help you heal? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was a very spiritual experience. So I
Hmm.
I started having dreams, and I'll just tell you. Started
Yeah.
having dreams that I was witnessing in my dreams him leaving, like me leaving the house and me looking down like I was in this tunnel. This isn't breath,
Yeah.
mind you,
Hmm.
looking down at everyone that I love. So it was like looking up and my body was just like floating, and and my family was like grabbing at me, and I was able to like put a bubble up and just like pull it back and protect me in that moment. And it was, I don't know, people have like cord cutting moments in
Yeah.
breath, but it was just like this moment where I feel like I took my power back, where it was like,
Mm.
this is the path I'm going to be on now, helping people. Like that was his journey. And I was able to disconnect from that and find like the lessons and what I was able to learn and teach others. And that was super powerful for me. And that was breath session number one.
Wow.
I know. Like,
So powerful, right? And this is what I think people don't who've never experienced breath work don't realize how powerful just you breathing a certain way can change, the way your body self-regulates. And it's powerful, and it's almost like it sounds like almost like a psychedelic experience for you,
totally.
whereas a spiritual experience where you had visuals, you saw something specific, which a lot of people do. And that's awesome. So something in you changed at that point where maybe you felt like you had your power back. You could get back to quote unquote normal, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
maybe even more powerful than therapy, or a different kind of like,
EMDR is pretty somatic,
yeah,
because it's the eye movement. So luckily, I've had a lot of somatic therapy from the get-go.
yeah,
Traditional, and this is what I tell my clients, like I like to start with the body. Like the mindset coaches work with the mind, telling the mind, do this, do this, do this. But until the body truly believes what you're trying to tell the mind, it's never going to listen to what the mind has to say. Because, I mean,
mm,
say it's getting on stage and you're like scared, your body's going to be like, oh, hell no, I'm not going out there. You could tell the mind, like, you're safe, you're going to be fine. But if the body's like, no, I'm not safe, like getting to those deeply rooted, like bottom down approach
yeah.
things that like just bring things up and you don't know where they come from.
Can you define somatic for us, for those that might not know what somatic means, or they've maybe heard of it, but they don't really know what the definition, or how do you define somatics for people?
It's a bottom down approach to
Hmm.
healing. Yeah. I always tell people, like, similar to the mindset coaches where they work with that mind, um, just working with the body. So it's a lot of breath work, movement, sound. Um, I have a lot of energy healing in me as well. So I work with my clients in more of an energetic realm as well. Um, I think that we all have a little gift inside of us. We just forget it
Yeah.
because we're in this mental mind all the time. And once you have that experience with breath, you can't unsee it, and you never want to go away from it. Like I know when I have a stressful day, I'm like, I need to breathe. Like I need to find my a quiet spot and go breathe. Like that's my out now.
Mm.
Where other
And what do
people
you
may pick up their phone or like go to
yeah.
something outside of them.
Which I think is so much easier for people. Like, well, there's so many escapes available to us nowadays as humans. There's so many comforts that we can gravitate towards that, help relieve that pain, whether it's food, drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, movies, TV shows, social media. Like,
Or even
it's
other
so,
people.
yeah, or other people. We can escape through so many things. Even
Mhm.
I would say exercise can be an escape.
Totally.
There's healthier escapes and there's less healthier escapes, of
Yeah.
course. Like exercise versus drugs is not the same thing. But as humans, I think we struggle to sit in our pain. We want to escape the pain. We want to fast forward through the pain,
Yep.
get to the good part, right?
Yep.
But I love the quote by Rumi: "The cure for pain is in the pain." And so, until we face our pain, until we feel our feelings, and let that pain teach us something, it'll just keep coming back up to remind you, a gentle reminder, like, hey, you got to learn this lesson. This
Yep.
is why this pain happened.
Yep.
Um, I think that's a valuable lesson for so many of us. What have you learned, and why? Like, for example, here's this man who, like you said, relatively good guy, to be able to do something like that, right? He must have been struggling, hurting inside. And now you're in a position where you want to pay it forward. You want to help people, and you kind of focus on young men. It sounds like
Mm,
before they become adults and set in their ways. How did you land on that? Like,
mhm.
what lessons did you learn to be like, I want to help men process their feelings
Yeah.
or have a safe outlet for them? Like, how do you see what you do now,
Yeah.
and how do you try and help people in this world?
Well, in December of 2022, I started Operation Twitch with one of my
Mhm.
friends that was a breathwork facilitator. And it was after the DJ Twitch took his life.
Yep, heard
I
about
was,
that. So sad.
I was finally like, I have to do something. Like he was, I loved him. Like, how did he do that? He was
Yeah,
always so happy. So I was like, let's do this. And the first event had 70 men show up. So we had a luxury car dealership, put candles out, yoga
wow.
mats out with the Ferraris and the Corvettes, and like told them it would be really cool. And they came and did breath work, and it was like a lion's den. It was so cool. And to me in that moment, like having it been it was like my first event after, and hearing men healing was
Yeah,
so rad. Like I knew it was so much pain that was just like echoing off the walls. It was just viscerally to me, it was just like, this is it. Like, and I
yeah.
never looked back. Never ever looked back.
Yeah, that is so powerful. I recently saw a video. It's a pretty powerful video about men and suicide and the statistics on it. And there's these two men at this like soccer match, and one of the men is, they're both older, but like one of them is kind of sad, and you can tell he's kind of gloomy and not really present. The other one's like kind of happy, trying to cheer him up, and they're cheering on their team, and one's clapping and laughing, and the other one's just kind of like, just kind of a little bit sad, you can tell based off his facial expressions. And it talks about the statistics of men and suicide. And then at the end, it shows just one guy show up, and it's the sad one who showed up. And it said sometimes the signs aren't always there. And I think men struggle with this because we're taught not to show emotion. We're taught to suppress our feelings. And I know that firsthand because I've done that pretty much my whole life until maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. But I think this work that you do for men is so important because, and I recently just saw my good buddy Chris Powell. He did a breathwork session. He posted it, and he was so vulnerable in his post. And you just see him bawling his eyes out, and posting that to be seen. Like most men would be afraid to post something like that, but I really commend him for it because that's part of the healing journey. And that's been my journey too, of like embracing vulnerability as a strength, owning your story, breaking the cycle, letting yourself feel your feelings. And it's hard. It's really hard to like they say, the man in the arena, that whole quote, to be seen and be vulnerable. And it's not the critics that count, because people are going to call you out, call you names, make fun of you, make you feel less than. And I think that's what men are up against, is the ridicule from other men
Absolutely.
who, think they're tough. And man, I think that's the way we change
Yeah.
our society, and it's powerful. So that those two things got to me, and I'm really glad that you do what you do, because I think, and you probably see it, you see men, these tough men come in here and do breath work, and
Yeah,
you
naturally,
know
that's now what I attract is the ones that, I mean, now I've worked with first responders and war vets that have survival guilt, and they're just hurting. Like how do we as humans expect them to just keep living with survivor guilt? Like
mm,
humans weren't put here to just be alone, like in
yeah,
our pain and our struggles. Like we need each other. We need each
yeah.
other, men or women.
Yeah, and I think the difference between men and women in this situation is men have a tougher time reaching out asking for help. And I'll be told the first one to admit that.
True.
It's hard for a man in his 40s to go up to a bunch of other guys and be like, "Hey, do you guys want to be friends with me? Like, do you guys want to hang out and talk about our feelings?" Like, no, okay. Like men struggle, and I think that we're going through a loneliness, you know, situation with men struggling because they were like, yeah, they don't know how to reach out. I think women are much better at connecting and like, oh, you're so pretty and love your dress and blah blah blah, and men are just like, sup, like, like they don't
That's
know how to like connect on a deeper level. And I've noticed this too. Like, I think being vulnerable, I'm a pretty vulnerable guy, an open book. It kind of makes other men feel uncomfortable sometimes. I've noticed where it's like, because we've never been taught how to be, show our emotion or be vulnerable in a situation like that. And it's something that I think hopefully we can get better at.
yeah. That's why I love breath work is it takes you out of that mental field. So even 70
Mm,
men that are all up here in their egos and their mental head walk into that room, you do breath with them, they're homies. They're like
yeah.
they will never
Yeah.
not be. They can't unmake that happen for those situations. And the beautiful thing about breath is men don't have to speak. Like the answers
Mm,
just come through the
yeah.
body. Like
Yeah.
there are no words that they even have to say. They just get it now.
Yeah. It's so true. And I was going to ask you, since you focus mostly on men, what have you seen in your breathwork sessions that really impacts them? Is it the breathing? Is it the you mentioned like energy? Like, what does that look like? The energetic healing that you do.
Yeah.
What is it about it like that really impacts these men? That really changes them? Is it?
I
Yeah.
I would say
What have you
it's
seen?
permission.
Okay.
So when I'm in those group sessions with men, just being able to, once they're out of their head and into their body, typically they'll like hold themselves in a, like they'll hold their throat or their chest or
Mm,
whatever that looks like. Um, and when you touch that spot in their body, it's that hands-on assist, it just
yeah.
allows them to just release. They're like, oh my gosh, she sees me. Like that's how did she know that?
Yeah.
Like, specifically, someone the other day, I knew he was, like, holding his chest, and I went up to him and just, like, lightly put my hand on his chest, and I was like, "Take your power back," and he, like, looked like Superman coming out of breath. It was just like he just ripped his costume off. I was like, "Oh, I love this work." And
Wow.
and even when you talk to him, he's like, "How did you know that?" It's because we're all, like, I always tell everyone we're all souls walking around in these meat suits. Like this is literally just
Yeah.
a a suit that we get to experience life, but we're all souls in there.
Yeah. I really that makes me reminds me of the quote by Ram Dass. We're all just walking each other home.
Yep.
And here's the way I see your journey of like, here's the situation with your ex partner who took his life, which is a horrible, sad thing, right? Obviously, he was in a lot of pain, um, and was struggling, probably silently. And that happened. That obviously changed something in you to want to help other people. And that's what happens when we look at life happening for us instead of to us, right? And you've done the work to heal yourself from this experience to be able to then pay it forward. That says a lot about you and your journey of like not staying in the victim mindset, but using that situation, as unfortunate as it was, to help those who are silently struggling, so that hopefully maybe you have prevented men from going down that path that this guy went down. And if you could prevent even just one person from doing that and helping them realize that they're worthy to fight, to show up for themselves. I think at the end of the day, it's about helping people realize that they're worthy of love and that they are lovable. And I think most of us struggle with that belief
Yeah.
of like, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable.
Yeah.
And we tend to self sabotage based on those patterns. But that's the way I see your journey and your story, Jamie, of like that this situation. And so I know that you do have people out there that are, making your life hard, that maybe, are hating on you. And you know, and the way I see it, like I said, is you're out there trying to make a difference in this world because of what happened, to help other men not go down that path
Yeah.
and
I-
to realize their worth. And like you said, feel their power like you did to that guy when you put your hand on his chest.
Yeah. Yeah. And think that when people start shaming people for speaking about their mental health, that's what got us here in the first place. So we need to stop
Mm,
the shame of people trying to speak up about mental health. In my situation, I'm trying to be, I mean, I have people trying to silence me, silence my story when my story was a gift to me to be able to help people and help break the silence. Like
yeah,
the suicide rates for our youth is going up so much. It
yeah,
blows my mind, like 10-year-olds. And it just
mm,
needs to stop. It needs to stop. And the way we do that is body-based healing. I truly believe that, like getting to the root.
yeah,
From 0 to 7, we're co-regulating with healthy adults. And if you miss that part of your childhood growing up,
yeah,
parts and pieces of you are going to show up and self-sabotage as an adult and just
yeah,
stay hidden until we expose them and love them.
yeah, yeah. That's so true. I think one of the things I've learned from my journey is, the less you talk about shame, the more power shame has over you. And the more you talk about shame, you put it out there in the open, the less power it has. And the more you realize that you don't need to be consumed by it. And when you have a healthy outlet to talk about it and bring it up where you're not, feeling judged or being made fun of, it's easier to let it out.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I opened up to talk about like my divorce and things like that, I was like literally shaking. Like I couldn't not shake and
Yeah.
I could barely speak because that's how much power this shame for 34, 35 years of my life had over me. And so I know what that's like to make that jump of like, okay, I'm going to speak my truth. Here we go. And it's so scary. It's so scary and so hard, but it's so worth it. It's like the freedom you feel on the other side is so worth that scariness of like stepping into the arena.
Yeah.
Um,
Taking the
and that's
fear.
where life is meant to be lived.
Yeah.
Life is too short to kind of wear a mask forever. It's exhausting.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. We were
S-
meant to live and take the shackles off and be here for each other. I
yeah.
truly believe that.
Yeah. So where do you go from here, Jimmy? What do you want to do? What's your goal? What's your hope with all of this? What do you want to accomplish now that you've experienced what you've experienced and now you're on this path? What is your hope? What does your future look like?
I've started working with the youth. Uh,
Mm,
so 15 to adulthood, I see so many hurting adults that I've stepped
yeah.
into now the youth space because giving them the tools to help regulate these systems. One thing that I missed is I missed the step in growing up of getting the tools handed to me. Like I didn't know
Mm,
how to regulate my nervous system, so that put me in situations that maybe weren't safe for me. So teaching these kids like to listen to their body. Like if it feels like a visceral no, then it's a
okay.
no. Like
Yeah.
young girls, like if it's a no, don't do it for your friends. Don't do it to be cool. Like it's a no. And then a visceral yes. Like what is a hell yes to you? Like you're going to
Mm,
feel it in the body. So it's simple when you're working with the kids, but when you start working with the adults, they have so much unpacking to do first to even get to the
hmm.
nervous system. So that's why I've liked working with the kids,
Yeah.
um, teaching them the tools. A lot of adults don't know how to teach their kids, so that's been good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I love, love, love working with men in group spaces.
Sure. How has the youth received it? Are they kind of like, "Oh, this is lame," or are they kind of like open to it? What's your experience so far with like working with like kids who can be kind of like, you know, like that?
It's hit and miss. The
Oh, okay.
the secret sauce is so I've worked with specific athletes. So similar to
Okay.
men, how it's like, come be in a luxury car dealership, da da da. With the kids, you have to get their sport, like specifically
Got it.
baseball. Like
Okay.
we're gonna come and we're gonna learn the mental game of baseball, but really we're learning the mental game of life. Like
Hmm.
they're not gonna come if we're talking about mental health, though. I've
Yeah.
learned that the hard way. It would be cool if we could be like, "Yeah, kids, we're talking about mental health. Like, let's
Yeah.
all get
Yeah.
together."
It's
They
like a
won't come though. I've sat in rooms by myself. They don't come.
yeah. I can see that too. Like with youth, if you're making about mental health or self love, and they don't really know what that means, or you know, so I think speaking their language or coming down to their level is really important to
Yeah.
help them connect to you. And I think you being a woman, they're probably more open to listening. Than some other guy. But I think that's really cool what you're doing, Jamie. Where can people find you, work with you, learn more about your techniques and what you do? Because what you do is different than what I do. Like I do something just called somatic breathwork. You do somatic healing, which is all encompassing. It sounds like there's more to it. Yeah, so where can people learn more about you and your services?
I am on Instagram at the Somatic Reset.
Okay,
That's the
very
best.
simple. We'll
Yeah.
put that in the show notes. That's
Mhm.
where you want to send people to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the Semitic reset. Jamie Hinckley, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure. We'll be seeing you in Utah when I come out there for breathwork soon.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you for setting that up. Really grateful and grateful for you for speaking your truth and sharing your story.
Thank
And I'm sure people listening will be impacted.
you.
And there's a lot of gems and positive messages from this episode, and just super grateful for what you do. So thank you for showing up.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Talk soon. Okay.
Go!